What is going on, YouTube? Coming back today with my last preview of the day, the Northwestern Wildcats 2016 college football preview. So, talking about a team that went 10-3 overall last year, very impressive 6-2 in the Big Ten West, good for tied for second. So, let's go ahead and get into the first of my three key players and start with Clayton Thorson. Guy that had an up and down season last year. Really should be improved in 2016, especially if this team wants to have a chance long term. And he really just has to find more consistency in his game. This is a guy that was smart with the ball. He's got good arm strength, and he's a decent dual threat quarterback, but really seemed like he played it safe a lot of the time last year. Took a lot of sacks as well. So move on to the second of my three key players, and I've got Justin Jackson, the running back. So Justin Jackson, once again, had a fantastic season in 2015. At this point, he has over 2,600 yards rushing in his career for Northwestern. This is a team that's got a pretty deep stable of running backs coming back for 2016. Obviously, just mentioned Justin Jackson. You got Warren Long alongside him, which senior coming back once again. So I think this could be one of the strong suits of their team. Probably is the most set part of their offense. Also another thing to watch out for, John Moten, redshirt freshman, should be big in 2016. So my third key player is the heart and soul of the defense, which is Anthony Walker at middle linebacker. This defense was one of the best, maybe not just in the Big Ten, but in the country last year. They return a lot of experience at almost every single position. This secondary is going to be led by Godwin, I believe Wabuki, and then Matthew Harris. They do have to reload a little bit on the defensive line. Both defensive ends are going to have new starters. Xavier Washington, a big name to watch out for on the left defensive end side. At defensive tackle, they got two experienced guys coming back, C.J. Robbins, Tyler Lancaster, but beside the point, Anthony Walker, a guy that once again will be in the running for multiple awards and will be one of the best middle linebackers in the country, in my opinion. So my first of two X factors, something I just talked about, and that's the defensive line. Like I said, they lose both defensive ends. I think this, if you had to pick any part of their defense that will be the weakest part of their team, I think you'd have to choose the defensive line. It's pretty simple. Just have the next guy step up at defensive end. Dean Lowry is going to be a big loss for this year. He's one of the best players along their defense. But I think this defense will be just fine this year. So my second X factor is quarterback development. I mentioned this earlier with Clayton Thorson. I'm not going to cover this one too in depth either. But if this offense wants to be more successful in 2016 than they were in 2015, this team relied very heavily on Justin Jackson, just him on offense. Then Clayton Thorson's going to have to develop into a little bit more of a, I wouldn't say a risk-taking quarterback. I mean, that to some degree, but just use his ability, like I said, as a decent dual-threat guy, and then his arm strength a little bit more. So, get into my trap game for Northwestern, and I think it's going to be Minnesota. Seems like a weird one since both teams are going to be pretty good heading into 2016, but, there really only looks like two trap games on the schedule. Western Michigan to start the year will be a tough one, but in conference, Indiana and Minnesota make the most sense. So my biggest game for Northwestern is going to be Iowa. I was picking between Iowa, Wisconsin, and Nebraska, but all three are going to be huge games because those are the top four teams in the division. All of them are going to be duking it out for that top spot. If you saw my Big Ten predictions, I did have Wisconsin winning the Big Ten West this year. But Iowa's the defending champs of the division, and you got to knock off the defending champs before you can become the champs. So that's my thinking for the biggest game. So get into my record prediction for Northwestern, and I think they'll be a little bit worse than they were in 2015, but I think they're still going to go 8-5. I think they still will be a bold team. I think that just shellacking against Tennessee last year kind of hurt their confidence a little bit. They're relying on a guy who I think will be good this year in Clayton Thorson, but also a guy that, I think he's not quite there yet. I think he's primed for maybe a big junior year, but right now, still got a little bit more development to undergo. And I think just something tells me the wheels might start falling off Justin Jackson. Just he's gotten worked so hard the last 2 years. But nonetheless, I do still think they'll have a 7-win regular season and be able to get a bowl win at the end of the season, kind of even out everything. So that pretty much does it for my Northwestern football preview. Tomorrow I'll be coming back with Mizzou, Mississippi State, and TCU. So got a pretty big set of previews to do tomorrow. But that's pretty much it. See ya.